Right then, good morning everybody. Welcome to today's Chamber Live, Wednesday edition. We will shortly have Monday editions of Chamber Live to come. More about that in a moment. Our guest presenter today is David Gorton from PM&M. He's going to help us to, hopefully, navigate the cash flow crisis. Just some very quick bits of housekeeping. If you haven't yet stumbled across it, the Chamber website is the place where you'll find our coronavirus hub. That's a one-stop shop for all latest government information and advice and support that's available. It's updated almost daily for us. So if you want to go and find a lot of the documents that will not be referred to today, then you can find on our coronavirus hub. Another website that you'll find useful is chamberlive.co.uk. That is for our upcoming series of Chamber Live events, of which this is one. Next Wednesday, the topic is Don't Stop Selling and Marketing. Dave Walker from Plus 24 Marketing is going to be delivering that for us. The following Monday, the 20th of April, the first of our new Monday editions of Chamber Live, Keeping the Home Workforce Engaged and Connected. That's going to be delivered for us by fellow member Daisy. And then on Wednesday, 2 weeks today, on Wednesday the 22nd of April, Managing Health and Safety at Work During a Pandemic. And as someone who's just put my back out yesterday, working from the sofa in the conservatory, I'll be watching that with interest. You can register for all of those by going to chamberlive.co.uk. Please also join the LinkedIn group for Chamber Live as well. If you want to keep in touch with us, you might find yourself on furlough over the coming months. Don't be shy of sharing your personal email address with us so that we can keep emailing you either on your work address and your personal address. There's also the new Chamber WhatsApp channel, which is, I'll put the number in the chat box, or if Debbie or Jen can do that. The Chamber WhatsApp number is 0771 939914. If you just send subscribe to that number on WhatsApp, then you'll get occasional information through on WhatsApp from the Chamber as well. We will give you a survey on the follow-up email, as well as the slides from today's presentation. If you will complete that survey for us, it helps us to shape future Chamber Lives. We're looking for sponsors. Your message could be in front of everyone right now. If you'd like to be a sponsor for a future Chamber Live, please do speak to myself, Jen, or Debbie. We are recording this morning's session. Let me just check that we are. Yes, we are. We are recording this morning's session for publishing later today on the Chamber Live YouTube channel. And then just some quick rules of engagement. For questions, we're going to take questions at the end. So David's going to chat, and then we'll save all the questions to the end. If you've got a question, either put the letter Q in the chat box or your actual question, or you can use Zoom to virtually raise a little blue hand, like a Smurf, and we'll come to your questions at the end. When we get to that point, we'll ask you to unmute your microphone, put your question directly to David, and then remute yourself so we don't get the dogs and kids chatting away in the background. That is all the introductions from me. So let me introduce from PM&M, who are working together to help you achieve more, David Gorton. Thanks, David.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I shall wave back at the people waving at me. Thank you very much. I'm going to run through the presentation on navigating the cash flow crisis. So you're going to get a load of slides, hopefully in a second, or at least one slide. So a little bit then about, right, Simon, can you tell me, can you see that?
Yes, I can. I can see your slides.
Excellent. That's really good. So, tiny bit about PM&M first. So, we're accountants, tax and business advisors. We've been in East Lancashire for over 100 years. That would be 101 years, but it's over 100 years, so that's what counts. We're growing. I think I've been with the team for about 7 years, and we've gone up from about 60 people to just around 120 in that time. And I'm a partner there. I'm a partner mainly in the audit team, but I do tax advice and corporate finance when it's appropriate, leaning on my specialist partners to help me if it gets difficult. So navigating the cash flow crisis. Today, we're going to be covering, I'm going to start out by talking a little bit about the filler words in that title. I'm going to talk a little bit about navigating, and I'm going to talk a little bit about crisis, because actually they're a really important part of what you need to be thinking about in running a business at the moment. We're then going to go into the meat of the cash flow stuff. I'm going to talk about the government schemes that are going on, and then the things you need to be doing in running a business, in managing stuff at the moment, and then we'll have some final thoughts. So talking about navigating the cash flow crisis, I want to talk a bit about navigation, because my hobby is walking. I like, most days at the moment, I wander the Lancashire moors on, on a weekend, and it's a bit like running a business in normal times there. You're doing it. You kind of know what you're doing. It's hard work, but you enjoy it. It's strenuous, but you basically know where you're doing. You basically know what's happening. And once a year, I go up to Scotland in January or February and start climbing mountains in winter in Scotland. And that's a completely different ballgame. That is risky. It's a different level of challenge, a different level of danger, a completely different level of effort that needs to go into it. And it feels to me like this crisis has moved us from where we were running our businesses in an environment that we understood into the equivalent to walking in Scottish mountains in winter, where there's snow and there's ice, there's avalanche risks, there's precipices that you can fall down and kill yourself in a way that just isn't possible on the Lancashire moors. So when you're navigating in that kind of environment, what do you need? Well, the first thing you need to know, whether you're in the hills or you're in a business, is you need to have a target. You need to know where you're going for. You need to understand what your objective is, because if you haven't got a target, you're not going to make it work. You need to have a plan, not just going, that's what I'm going to do. What are the steps you're going to take to do it? What is the route you're going to take? Beyond that, you need to know what's going on around you. You need to know what your options were in terms of implementing that plan, and you need to know what flexibility you might have as you're going along. You need to know where you are on that map and what's happening around you. And you need to be able to move. And to be able to move, you need to have the energy, the strength, the resources to be able to move, which in today's world is you need to have some cash, and you need to have a team, and you need to have some customers who trust you and some suppliers who trust you. So there's a whole stuff of being a business. That's how that bit works. Then thinking about crisis. Now you think about it, don't make a drama out of it. We're still running business. We're still human beings. This isn't the end of the world. This is an enormously challenging environment, but it's not a drama. You can keep in control. It's business. We can all do this. And if you collaborate with your colleagues, with your customers, your suppliers, with the people around you, get support from the chamber, get support from your professional advisors, it will be manageable through. The next point about the crisis, people think about crisis as being a really short-term thing. I don't think this is going to be a short-term crisis. I think that this is going to last. Significant disruption in varying forms is going to last for months. So don't go, how do we get through the next few weeks? There's going to be a crisis normal or a crisis stable. While we're being hugely disrupted, you need to be in control for that period. Next stage is, when the massive disruption ends, we're not going back to the old normal. A whole load of stuff is going to have changed. So when you're navigating your way through, don't expect to get to a place which is, oh, we've got back to the same place as we were, we can just carry on. After we get out of the Scottish Highlands, we're going to be in a different place. We're not going to get, at the end of the Wizard of Oz, back onto a balloon that takes us back to Kansas. It's not going to work like that. I've said, prepared for medium term. the amount of disruption that's going to go on, you need to be thinking about the next 1 to 2 months, the next 3 to 6 months, the next 6 to 12 months. And then for your new normal, think about what 2021 looks like. How do you get, from 12 months to 24 months? What would a new normal look like? But your assumptions in each of those different timeframes when you're planning will be significantly different. And finally, the line I use every time when I'm walking up Scottish mountains, the important thing is to be able to come back next year. Work out what you're prepared to sacrifice to make this work through. There are bits of your business that you'd really like to do, but they're not vital to you. You need to be brave and you need to be ruthless about running your business so that as you get it, your business survives, you continue operating, and when next year comes, when you're into the new normal, you're there. Don't be sentimental about stuff. Do what needs to be done to make sure you come back next year. Anyway, that's the kind of overview stuff. And then we'll move on to government schemes. Now, I'm going to cover these. I'm going to give an overview of government schemes. I'm going to talk about the furloughing scheme a little bit. I'm going to talk about the self-employed income scheme. I'm going to talk about the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme as extended at the moment. I'm going to talk about the rates relief. I'm going to talk about grants, tax deferral, regulatory changes. There's quite a lot of government schemes. And the reason for that is I think in terms of government schemes, and back to my metaphor, I think the government schemes are, having been dropped into this place, this Scottish mountain world, you now need your ice axe and you need your crampons to keep you alive in these difficult places. So the government schemes are the ice axes and crampons. They're the equipment that's going to take you through this difficult environment and keep you going. So, unlike my Scottish mountaineering equipment, like them, the intention is very positive. I'm not sure that the government schemes are as well designed as my mountaineering equipment. They're launched under huge pressure. They're a massive change in how the government has ever done anything before. And because it's been launched under huge pressure, they're not desperately well designed. And the details aren't available until too late, so the communication is often very poor. I've got serious queries over the capacity that we have to make sure that the stated intentions of the schemes are actually going to be achieved. I was talking to one local council yesterday, and they have received £10,000 grants from central government for all 4,500 businesses that are eligible for those £10,000 grants. So they've been sent 45 million quid to pay out to businesses in their bit of East Lancashire. And they have the details to pay out the first 10 million of that. And the remaining 35 million, they don't have the capacity to pay out now because they don't have the details to do it. So the Chancellor stood up and announced that grant system a month ago. And a month later, councils still don't have the capacity to do it. And that's a month where business has been shut. The capacity for people to do this, HMRC, we'll talk about it in the further. HMRC are trying to set up a whole new computer system to deliver hundreds of millions of pounds to businesses. HMRC are rubbish at paying money back to people. There's a whole load of queries over the capacity to implement this stuff. And that means that I think that the timetable in which government schemes will actually come through might be too late. The consequence of all of that is that stuff is going to keep changing. The government is going to keep announcing new schemes and variations to schemes. Everything I tell you today, genuinely, the Chancellor could change in the rest of this week. Certainly, get to early next week, we could get another new scheme on this or another new scheme on that. It's a very, very volatile world out there. So, in detail, or not so much in detail, on furloughing, it's a huge scheme. I've not seen anything like this from the government in the 30 years I've been an accountant. The amount of cash the government is giving to support individual business profit and loss accounts would have been unimaginable a year ago. If if they had done this in 2010 rather than slamming the anchors on in austerity, I think we might have been in a very different place in the financial crisis. It's a really big switch. There's a whole load of details about how it operates. If you want to know about them, look on the ChamberLIVE website and watch what Ollie McCann said last week, because he's got the stuff on his fingertips. It was a jaw-droppingly impressive performance. And I'm not even going to begin to go into that. I'm talking about the financing bits of it. If you want to know how it works, watch Ollie's thing. It was genuinely great. But what we know is that HMRC are going to design a whole new system where every business in the country can upload details of their furloughing claim into a portal to inform HMRC of how much they want. And HMRC are going to have designed that robust portal that's going to work effectively by the end of this month. So there is clarity on how that works. That's what they're going to say. It's going to be working by the end of the month. We don't know what you need to do or how you're going to access it. We've been told some bits that it's only summary details that need to go into it. I've never seen HMRC hit a deadline yet, so I am sceptical about end of this month for that. Again, I'm told that they're going to start paying the furlough compensation out by the end of this month. I'm sceptical about that as well. As you can't be sceptical about the information without being sceptical of the repayments. I'll tell you more as and when I can. You know, the PM&M website's got a coronavirus hub. As soon as we know anything about it, we'll put it on there. But at the moment, all we know, there's going to be a portal, there's going to be repayments to people. Because of that, while it's a great P&L protector, in cash terms, don't count on any cash coming in and protecting you in the next couple of months. I can easily imagine this cash not landing till late May, early June. So there are some real worries around furloughing and how long it takes to come out. Say, government has promised it will come out in April, but we might need to see something else going on for that. They're effectively saying furloughing will protect you, but cash flow in the meantime, it's not really a cash flow protection thing. It's a loss mitigation scheme. The next thing that they've done is the self-employed income scheme. Ollie didn't cover this, so I'm going to have to do a little bit more on this myself. So they're admitting in this one that they're not going to be making any payments until June. I'm sceptical that they'll hit June, but that's a bit further away, so there's a possibility of that. And you will get, in theory, 80% of your average monthly profits from last year, or £2,500, whichever is lower. So that's broadly comparable to the scheme that is there for employees. The eligibility criteria are much more complicated. For the furloughing scheme, you had to be an employee. That was easy. For self-employed, you need to have less than £50,000 worth of self-employed income. And they calculate that both for 1 year and an average over 3 years. You need to have more than half of your income coming from self-employment. So if you've had a year where you had a really great year in renting out some properties and a poor year in trading, or you had a load of dividends from your company or from a company that you're director of as well, you might be disqualified because you had a good year in that one. You need to have filed a tax return for the year ended 5th of April 2019. So if you started out being self-employed in May last year, the government is not going to support you in April, May or June this year. So there's a real gap for people who've been entrepreneurial and taken their risks shortly or more recently. And you need, as a trader, to be trading now, to be expecting to continue trading in the future, but to be experiencing reduced profits due to the virus. How you are able to demonstrate that you've had reduced profits due to the virus when they're going to be measuring it presumably on your tax return for the year either to 5th of April 2020 or 5th of April 2021 to be receiving this. That's a really really concerning process. The definitions around it are very vague, and you run a real risk that you're going to apply for this, receive it, and then HMRC are going to come along later and say, we want our money back. So there's some serious questions about how that's going to work. Big thing as a contrast to the furlough scheme is that if you're self-employed and gain this benefit, you are allowed, indeed expected, to carry on trading. So while you're receiving this, you're potentially going to wind up saying, oh, well, you know, last year I had earned £49,000. This year, because of coronavirus, my £49,000 is going to have gone down to £40,000, but I'm getting £2,500 a month from the government just to keep me going. You could wind up being significantly better off than you would have been under the old scheme. We will see. Another difference is, what needs to happen on here is you need HMRC to work through their process, write out to you saying, we have checked and you're eligible, and then you can apply. Now, HMRC have started sending emails out to some people, but it's by no means consistent. So I know a father and son, both self-employed. The son has received an email, the father hasn't. Father's been on the phone to me this morning. What's going on? Have they missed me? HMRC's command of their own data is really poor. Do not expect them to have caught everybody in their first email list. But if in a couple of weeks' time you haven't heard anything, be aware you are on, you know, it's possible you've missed, and there might be some form of catch up, prod HMRC to confirm one way or another. But at the moment, we don't know anything about it. There is no process for you to prod HMRC at the moment. You just have to trust them to contact you. The professional advisors are arguing for there to be ways of verifying this, but we've had nothing back from HMRC on that yet. So, probably the biggest thing in terms of helping cash from the short term are the loans the government is putting out. Now, they've said that they've initially guaranteed £330 billion in loans to small and medium-sized enterprises. And they announced that, as I say, in the budget about a month ago. And worryingly, in that month of crisis, 330 billion, they have so far failed to get to 1 billion being lent out in that first month. So in terms of emergency response to the crisis, we're not really getting there. When I say not got to 1, I think they might have got to a quarter of 1. So we're at less than 0.1% of their amount so far being lent out. But the intention of the scheme is absolutely brilliant. I've got no problem with the intention. I've just got some concerns over the implementation. And they did, on Thursday or Friday of last week, announce that they were relaxing various criteria to try and accelerate the process of this coming out. But it is an ongoing concern how slow this is being. So the main thing for Chamber members is going to be the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme. So this is eligible for SMEs. And the definition of SMEs, as far as we can gather at the moment, is simply that you have turnover of less than £45 million in your group. Now, there are lots of other definitions of SMEs kicking around, but that's the one they're using here. It seems that if you have an overseas parent company with value and turnover in the overseas group that takes you over the 45 million, then you are probably disqualified. We can't quite confirm that. There's no definite guidance on that. And if you're sitting in a world where your overseas parent is going, well, we're shut down, we can't send you money, you're going to have to look after yourself. Can't help you through. In addition to being an SME and 45 million turnover, you need to demonstrate that you were a viable business before the coronavirus hit and that you expect to be a viable business afterwards. There's a lot of judgment in this. This is sitting with the high street banks or the banks to help you in this area. It's going to be their judgment as to whether you're viable or not. And that's not necessarily a comfortable thing for us all to be in. If you get to the point where they've decided you're eligible, you need to decide what you're looking for. Are you looking for a simple overdraft? You know, You've got a short-term cash problem. Will they just give you some money so that you can manage your situation now and look to be able to repay that over the next year or two as and when cash flow permits? So overdrafts up to £250,000, reasonably, in theory, reasonably widely available. If you're going to need more than that, you need to be getting into a world where you're looking for loans or you're looking for asset-backed facilities or something like that. The world there is rather more complicated. There's a suggestion we've seen that the maximum value they'd be prepared to lend under the scheme would be either twice your wage bill or twice your annual turnover. Again, that's been talked about. I've not seen anything in the guidance that actually says that, but that's what's being hinted at when you talk to the banks about these things. It's unlikely to be a hard and fast rule, but if you think that those are approximate guides as to where you might be sitting in a maximum loan, you then need to look and think about what security you've got and how that works. So that's how much you might be able to borrow. What do you need if you're applying for it? Well, the minimum things you need to be giving them are a cash flow forecast for the next 2 years. You need to be able to show that you're going to get through the crisis and that after that, you're going to be able to trade profitably. You need to be able to give them a business plan that talks about how the business is going to operate as well. So some words around your forecasts, and you need to give them some current information. Your last sets of statutory accounts, your last set of management accounts. You need to have some visibility in this stuff. There's been a lot of talk about personal guarantees on this scheme because the government is only guaranteeing 80% of the loan and they're only guaranteeing it to the banks. So you are personally on the hook for the total value of this, and the banks are nervous about it and started asking for personal guarantees. The rule from the government now is for loans under this scheme, the banks cannot request a personal guarantee if you're looking for an overdraft or a loan of less than £250,000. And if they're demanding a personal guarantee on amounts above £250,000, it is restricted to the 20% of the amount borrowed. So effectively, the government is saying, we're underwriting 80% and we don't need personal guarantees. If a bank needs personal guarantees for its safety, it can only demand them for that 20%. As someone who lost a lot of sleep over having personal guarantees outstanding, that's a much better world than personal guaranteeing the total amount, but it's still not nice having to put your worth outside of the business on the hook for what's in it. I know that some banks have been demanding personal guarantees whenever possible, and other ones have their policies that are changing. I can't tell you which is which at the moment because genuinely this is another area where the policies are evolving as time is going on. The government will cover the fees, the lending fees and the interest cost of any loan under this scheme for the first 12 months, which is a fabulous support. It allows you to get to the situation that all the documentation's in, the credit's dealt with, and you've not had to pay for it. You do need to be careful about what the world looks like in terms of loans and interest rates after the first 12 months. There have been lots of noises about potential penal rates coming in. I've seen someone suggesting that banks were going to put 25% interest rates on it for the period after the first year. We've not actually seen any of that. That's just been scaremongering in the newspapers. What we're seeing in terms of what people are talking about is 3% to 5% per annum, something like that. But you need to be very careful on your documentation. Don't just trust everything to go right. And think about what the fees are going to be as well. It's all very well having a really low interest rate, but if there's a couple of £1,000 a year renewal fee, it can rack up to being quite a lot of money in the overall scheme of things. Also, think about how long the repayment terms are. It's all very well getting money now, but if you have to repay it over 2 years, it's going to take 2 years before your business is even vaguely back on its feet. You might need these loans to be 5 or 6 or 8 years. See what you can manage to agree with people. In addition to the main SME £45 million and under loans, the government is offering loans to the middle businesses, which I think they classified as 45 million turnover to 500 million turnover, and investment grade businesses. It's not really my marketplace advising on those. I'm telling you that the government has schemes for them. If you need to know that, contact me and I can point you in the right direction, but it's not worth talking about here, I don't think. So moving on from loans, we're into various types of grants. So the government is giving 100% rates relief for key sectors being impacted by coronavirus: retail, hospitality, leisure, and nursery. So whatever size business you are, if you are in those sectors, you will get a 100% rebate on your rates for next year. There's a lot of noise about this because, one, people aren't arguing that that's fair for hospitality and leisure businesses, nursery businesses that are completely closed down. Some retail businesses are having an absolutely fantastic time. Everyone who's buying stuff from supermarkets because they can't go out anymore, and yet Tesco's and Sainsbury's, etc., all have got a complete rates holiday for the year. So they're getting bumper trading and government subsidies. And there's a lot of complaining about this. I was talking to someone yesterday who runs a manufacturing business where he supplied into coffee shops. He said, I'm just shut down. The people who used to spend money in my customers are now spending it in Tesco's, and Tesco's gets rate relief and I don't. I see his point, but that's the way the government scheme is written at the moment. That might be one of those things that changes. We don't know. The definitions of these sectors are complex and have changed. But for example, betting shops and casinos were excluded when the Chancellor first announced it, but have been revised and included into it since. Be very careful about how it goes. In theory, your local authority should be writing to you and saying you're getting a discount. But if you think you're eligible and you don't get a new bill confirming that the discount, contact your local authority and see how it goes. Be aware that many local authorities are short-staffed because of the coronavirus themselves, so it can take a long time to deal with it. Be aware also that there are, according to a local authority director, literally thousands of false claims coming in as people are trying to get money out of the government and rebates. So the reduced staff they've got are working really hard to filter stuff through. Be aware as well, the rules in Scotland, if you've got premises up in Scotland, they're slightly different. Principles are the same, but slightly different rules. So then, small business grants. If you're in hospitality, leisure and retail, and your business has a rateable value of up to £15,000, you are going to get sent a cheque for £10,000. If you're in a rateable value of 15,000 to 51,000, you're going to get a cheque for £25,000. The big supermarkets I was whinging about a minute ago, they will almost all have rateable values of above 51,000, so they're not going to get this. But these are nice grants. Point to make on these and on the next one, if you're a small business, again, low rateable value. If you've been eligible for small business rates relief or rural rates relief, you will get a grant for £10,000. This is what local authorities are trying to send out. This is what I was talking about, saying £45 million come in. But they can't send you the money if they don't have your bank account details. And if you don't pay rates, they don't have a direct debit account for you, so they don't know your bank account details. So what they're planning to do is to write to you. But if you shut your business up and locked it up because you can't open it because of coronavirus, you might not get the letter because they've only got the business address for you. So really, it's worth you checking this stuff. Some local authorities have got online forms. I'm told that Blackburn with Darwin and Burnley have got online forms. I'm told that Rossendale at the moment doesn't. But that was as of yesterday morning, and this is a fluid situation. By now, that might have changed. If you're a small business and you haven't had your repayment yet, look to register, look to get your money. Another relaxation that the government have done is that if you have team members off sick with COVID-19 related illness, the statutory sick pay that you're paying under that can now be reclaimed. Now, although this is a new change, because statutory sick pay wasn't able to be reclaimed previously, that itself was a change of about 5 or 6 years ago. So hopefully that system will work quite smoothly. It wasn't in place, I don't think, for April 2020, but I think it should be in place next month. But it might, watch this space on that one. Another thing to say is, if you are quiet at the moment, think about whether this is the time to get your research and development tax credit done and make a claim. It's another area where the government is giving money out, and they are committing that at the moment they will process 95% of small business R&D tax credit claims in the next 28 days. Those are the big areas where government is going to be giving you money. Ways in which they're talking about not taking money off you. If you are due to make a payment on your VAT returns between the 20th of March and the 30th of June, you don't have to make it. You don't have to make it, but HMRC's processes aren't very good on this. So if you've signed a direct debit form, they will still take the money out of your bank account, even though they've said they don't want it. So if you've got a direct debit for this, cancel the direct debit form and then submit a new one when you have to start paying again. You do still need to send your VAT returns in at the normal time. That VAT will be due to be paid in March 2021. All income tax self-assessment due on the 31st of July will not need to be paid. That will all get swept up on the 31st of January next year. If you, those are the automatic ones. If you have cash flow problems, you can phone up a special coronavirus 19 time to pay help desk, and they will agree pretty much automatically deferrals of your pay as you earn and national insurance and your corporation tax. In addition to that, if you are struggling to pay your business rates because of this, contact your local authority. There's no automatic statutory scheme on this, but the local authorities that I've spoken to are very keen to make sure they're supporting their local businesses, and they're being very understanding at the moment. So that's the deferrals. The other stuff the government's doing to try and make your lives a little bit easier. If you're a commercial tenant, the government is saying that they will not allow any eviction proceedings to start in the next 3 months. So anytime before June, your landlord cannot start trying to evict you for non-payment of rent. It's sort of nice. The landlord can still appoint bailiffs. They can still try and pursue your money in other areas, and you're still going to owe them the rent. So it gives you a little bit of breathing space, but it doesn't give you any cash. Government is acknowledging that filing your accounts is not top of people's priorities in this crisis, so they're saying that will be an automatic 2 or 3 month relaxation of accounts filing deadlines. So that's likely to last through till the end of the year. So if your filing date was going to be September, it will slip to being November. Certainly that applies to June year ends being slipped to, or June filing dates being slipped to August or September. Government has said that they are going to relax the rules on directors trading while insolvent. They recognise that it's very hard for a director at the moment to know whether their business is in fact solvent or not. It's really difficult to judge how trading is going. And rather than putting a legal pressure on directors to, if they think they might be, or might be taking personal risk on this, to shut the business, they're saying they're going to relax it, and the rules on wrongful trading that would make a director personally liable for trading while insolvent are going to be relaxed. The legislation isn't actually passed yet, but they've announced that that's what's going to do, and I don't believe that they will step back on that. relevant mainly in the agricultural sector at the moment, but perhaps a bit more widely than that. There used to be a requirement that you physically inspected original documentation of right for people confirming their right to work in the UK, which, if you're approaching harvest season in the agricultural sector, is an enormous piece of work and brings you into very close contact with people. So they've moved to a position where they're saying you can look online or look at images of right to work documents. That's not a permanent deferral. If you've taken someone on this and then they're still employed when the coronavirus is over, you'll have to recheck to original documentation. They're also leaning on the banks to be a bit less ferocious about how they treat people breaking loan covenants and missing repayments. The other bit that HMRC are doing is that they're saying that the Making Tax Digital process that they implemented last year, they said that after 12 months, they would start taking a much harder line on people who weren't complying. They've now gone, we're not going to do that. We're going to wait until 2021 to start taking failure to do Making Tax Digital properly as serious as they could do. There will be more forms of regulatory change. I don't know what they are now, but as another part of that fluid situation. So that's what the government's doing, but what are we doing about managing? We're going to talk about managing your customers, we're going to talk about managing your suppliers, and managing your financing. And then we're going to talk about how you pull it all together and how you need to keep control. So, customers. Big thing to remember with customers is collect as much cash from them as you can while keeping them as your customers. There are some suppliers who are shouting at businesses that genuinely have no cash at the moment, and you destroy goodwill in that world. To the extent that you possibly can, collaborate with them, work out how you can work with them to maintain a business relationship going forward. Get into a collaborative and a helpful relationship with them. Remember, if they don't pay, your capacity to enforce legally is challenging. You can send threatening letters, but the legal system is clogged at the moment, and I can't think that the judge would take suing for debts particularly seriously. If you're making them go into court to hear it, you might have to have a very good reason for them to be sympathetic to you. Again, it's about managing the relationships with these customers, getting into the situation where you can trust them and they can trust you to work this through. It's not this isn't an environment to try and be clever about how you do things. You need to work with people because there's so little confidence in the system that to maintain your business going forward, you've got to have trusting relationships. I see this particularly in seasonal businesses. If you're sitting at the moment going, what I need from my customers is not only cash now, but I need a commitment from them to be buying stuff for the autumn winter ranges, you might need to be foregoing deposits from them, but taking commitments, or working out how you manage between you the fact that you need to be placing orders on suppliers to bring this through to make it effective. Similarly, when you're thinking at suppliers, you're going to have to collaborate with them. In worlds where you've placed orders on them and they're manufacturing these and intending to send them to you, and you're going, my warehouse is full and I've got no staff to receive them, what do you do in that circumstance? It's about sharing information and trying to be fair and trying to make sure that you have a relationship going forwards. You need to understand payment terms. You need to understand what your next load of commitments are, because coming back to that, what's your target? If your target is an effective running business in 2021, you need to be understanding which suppliers are going to be pivotal for you, who is you're going to be collaborating with to make this work. Outside of your trade suppliers, think about whether what you can negotiate with your landlord. They've lost some legal leverage, so can you get a deferral? Can you actually get a holiday? Can you get a new rent-free period? Can you spread the next 6 months' rent over the next 3 years? There are all kinds of deals that are being done in this area. And landlords, often sitting in a world where they're having to negotiate with their banks for deferrals anyway, you might as well try and manage the pressure there in as fair a way as you can. Make sure you're managing your utility bills. If you're no longer running your premises, your utility bills are down, you're not going to be making the same monthly payments if you're not using the same amount of power or water. Import VAT is likely still to be required, but if you're importing medical products, you can probably get a deferral on that from the government. It is arguably possible to defer payment of payrolls. I was talking about how furloughing didn't help your cash position, but if you've got a small team or you want to talk to your senior management, you might manage to get an agreement that the senior management team don't get paid until the furloughing payment comes through. It will be very tempting not to pay over your pension contributions. You've deducted them from your employees, and that's cash that you can have. It's not a good idea, generally, to take money off your employees and not pay it across to the pension authorities. The pension regulator takes a very dim view of it, and they've got some quite startlingly great powers. So, strong recommendation on that is for pension contributions that you've taken for your employees, pay them over. Your own pension contributions, that's your call. So what about financing? As far as financing is concerned, banks are encouraged to be as generous as they can at the moment, to be realistic and pragmatic. So if you've got existing facilities, whether it's with a bank or an asset-based lender, see what you can do about getting yourself a 2, 3, 6 month holiday on payments, just until you've got some clarity on the world. If you're looking for new facilities, it's probably going to be on the government scheme. But if you're not eligible for that for one reason or another, again, banks are keen to lend if they can, if you're a viable business. If you can't get loan capital, it's worth thinking about how you keep your business going. You're better off having 80% of a new business, of an ongoing business, than 100% of a business that's failed. So think about whether your management team have got capital that they might be able to put into the business to support you. Think about whether new external investors are around. There are several investors that I know of, private individuals or funds that have said, we are open for business, we are keen to invest in businesses in today's environment. I haven't actually seen any of them come to fruition yet, but there are very positive noises being made by people. Don't think that the financiers are completely shutting up shop for risk. But, this will make my last point there, take care over the value of your business. You will not get a premium price in today's environment. Do think about putting in your own private funds. In general, almost always do not draw out your pension funds to put into your business to tide it over a short-term cash crisis. You don't know how long this cash crisis is going to be, and your pension fund is a really great private asset of yours. I think I've seen once or twice people taking money out of their pension funds to tide their businesses over and it be successful. Almost always they've taken the money out, put it in, and then found that they didn't get the result that they needed to. So be very careful. Always talk to your financial advisor in huge detail before you think about taking money out of your pension fund to put into your business. So, control. This is the time when you really do need to know what's going on in your business. The strong recommendation for me is to forecast your cash payments and receipts by day, by item. Every business that I know that's been through difficult times in cash terms has moved to this. And even when they're enormously successful years later, they keep it going because it gives them great visibility and control over how it's going. It's a pain to set up in the first instance, but once you've got the process of it, it gives you fantastic knowledge of what's going on. It makes you feel like you know what's happening. Keep your accounts completely up to date. As I say there, surprise is your enemy. You need to know what your assets and liabilities are. You need to know what's going on. There are some fantastic pieces of software out there to help you run your business. Make sure that you're using them now. I suspect that most people on this call didn't use Zoom regularly a month ago and are now using it all the time. There are pieces of software to manage your accounts that are as easy to use as Zoom and will give you that amount of knowledge of your business. Strong recommendations to think about how you can make software your friend in running your business. Plan and build a forecast for it. Don't just sit there passively thinking it'll all work. You actually need to know what might be happening. Think about your profit and loss account. Think about your balance sheet. Think about how that flows through into a high-level cash flow. Plan for various different assumptions for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. Do the planning. And when you've done the planning, flex them. Think about which of those assumptions in those periods will wind up running out of your cash. Again, some pieces of software make that really easy to do. But whether you're just using a spreadsheet or whether you're using good software, doesn't really matter as long as you know what your risks are and where they are. So, final thoughts. Don't panic. You're running a business. Panicking will lead you to chaos. Keep in control. Think about managing customers and suppliers. Work out which of the government's tools for safety are going to be helpful for you. Talk to your professional advisors. Talk to the chamber. See what you can do. Panicking will not help any of us. Your business is going to be different. You need to be prepared to change. You're going to need to junk some of the things that were valuable to you before. You're going to find new things that are valuable to you going forwards. Make sure you stay in control of where you are. Don't surrender that. And as I said at the start, make sure you come back next year. Be brave enough to change what you need to change to make sure you keep going. And that is it. Thank you very much. I'll try and stop sharing this.
Thank you, David. That was excellent. We do have a few questions in the chat box, so I'll introduce them. Paul Graham from Literacy Solutions. Do you want to unmute your microphone and put your question to David?
Yeah, it's just a fairly simple question, really. With the HMRC contacting us, are they definitely going to email? Because my wife's sort of been a bit worried about fraud.
I wouldn't guarantee on HMRC emailing at all. HMRC in general don't correspond with people by email. If you want to, for example, on a tax inquiry, if you want to communicate with them by email, you've got to sign a specific protocol to send, confidential information over it. I would expect that they will write to you. They may email if they've got an email address, but unless you've signed a protocol with HMRC, I wouldn't be sending stuff back to an email address or replying to an email you get that purports to come from HMRC.
Right. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Courtney, is it Prestige? Hi, Courtney.
Hi, it's Prestige.
Prestige.
So I've got a couple of questions. The first one's about the furlough. So if the lockdown period was extended, which is looking quite likely, what's the chances that the government would extend the employee retention scheme past the end of May?
My expectation is that if they extend the lockdown, they'll have to extend furlough. I can't see how they can say that they're implementing a furlough scheme to support businesses for the coronavirus and then not support them when they extend the disruption.
Yeah, and then take it all away.
It doesn't make sense. The government's done a lot of things that don't make sense in my life, but I don't think that this would be one of them.
Perfect. And the last one was with regards to tax deferrals. How long would that last for? So if we were to defer our tax today, and then in 3 months' time they come at us for the money, but we're still in lockdown and we still haven't been having any revenue into the business?
again, there's no real answer to that. The situation that they ask for is that you make sure that you can pay what you can now, and they're normally asking for payments in 3 months' time. Clearly, if you get to 3 months' time and you go, the government has changed expectations so that we can't make it, you'll have to have another conversation with them. The standard HMRC line is that if you haven't met the terms of your last time to pay, you can't get a new one. The question is, can they enforce that in a world where they've changed the rules on you? And I can't answer that. Clearly, if they have any sense at all, they won't enforce it. But you can't. I couldn't legislate for HMRC insanity, I'm afraid. I've had too many occasions where I've gazed at letters from them and think, how on earth can they possibly put that in writing to guarantee that they won't do something foolish again?
That's perfect, thank you.
Any others, Simon?
Yeah, I just need to unmute myself. Rachel Collinson, are you still there, Rachel?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, we've got the majority of our staff on furlough at the moment. Some have got holidays booked because we're coming up to the Easter holidays and there's bank holidays as well. How does that fare with payment? Do they just lose it? Does it get cancelled and they can rebook at a later time, or can they take it and then we've got to pay them in full?
We're walking into the area that Ollie McCann covered last week, and I'm much more comfortable employment laws answering this than accountants and tax advisors. My understanding is that if you are on furlough, you can't take holiday because you have been furloughed.
Right.
What that means in terms of their holiday entitlement is more complicated than it's above my pay grade answering that question, I suppose. It's my cover. Have a look. I'm fairly sure that Ollie covered that last week.
Yeah, he did. If you're looking, there's a link in the chat, Rachel, which has got last week's seminar on. It's an hour and a half, but it's an hour and a half that I think you'll find really interesting. That's on YouTube, so watch that. And then you can always contact Ollie at Naptons he has said that he's happy to provide advice.
That's brilliant, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Louise, do you want to put your question?
Yeah, thanks, Simon. My question was about the contacting time to pay helpline. If we were contacting them to defer payment of our monthly pay-as-you-earn and I payment over to them, do I have to have that conversation with them each time I want to defer the monthly payment, or could I make arrangements to pay the next 3 months will be deferred for a 3-month period, for example? And is there any information I need to provide them?
Okay. You can agree a payment plan that says, this is what I can pay in this period. So, for the next 3 months, I'm not going to be able to make any payments, or for the next 3 months, I can make a payment of £2,000 a month rather than the expected £10,000 a month. That means at the end of it, I'm going to owe you £24,000, and I'm going to pay that back to you at an extra £2,000 a month over the 12 months following that period. They're quite comfortable in in having conversations like that. Whether they agree it or not is another matter, but the more you go to them with a coherent plan that says, I've thought about this is how I expect it to work, this is how, when the world gets better, I'm going to be able to make these repayments, the easier that conversation will come. What they want to understand before they'll agree time to pay is to what extent you have explored other options. So if you're sitting in a world of saying, well, I expect to be able to sort the payments now, or I can't make the payments now, but I'm going to get a business interruption loan scheme loan. I'm expecting that to come in July, and then on the basis of that, my loan application is going to be big enough to cover my deficit in this. They want to know that you've thought about the situation and that they're not just the only people who are being tapped up, that you're exploring options.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Louise. Paul's got a question. Do you want to come back in, Paul, on car leasing?
Yeah, okay. Wasn't necessarily aimed specifically at David, but I just wondered if anybody knew if you can get a holiday payment on your car finance. Obviously, you can do it on your mortgage, but at the moment, our car's pretty much sat on the drive doing nothing. But I don't really need it for the next however long. So I'm just wondering, you know, if any car finance companies have been understanding at all.
Any experience, David? I know we're actually looking at lining up Mark from Keyfleet on a future session, because so our anecdotal evidence is that some lease companies are being quite flexible. But have you seen any evidence of that, David?
I know a lot of people have asked. I understand that some have agreed something. It kind of depends. I know people have managed to agree with smaller lease companies, where you can talk to the financiers directly. Whether it's been manageable with the big boys, I don't know the answer. I suspect that everyone will be sitting in a world where they want to go. We want to keep customers in the medium term, and therefore we will be accommodating. But whether that's going to apply to a particular lender, I don't know. And so there's some bits in the chats. I think Richard Fuse just said that that they've had some good experience. So yeah, clearly some people are being accommodating.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Thanks, Richard. Audi aren't accommodating, apparently, Amanda. Thanks for the comments. It's a cowboy's favourite car, that, apparently. Audi. Any last questions?
Absolutely terrible.
You're welcome. Any last questions from anyone? I'm getting blank faces, so I'll say.
Down. I spoke for nearly an hour. It's fine.
No, David. Very informative, very positive comments. Thank you for sparing the time to educate us all. We'll circulate the slides to people in the follow-up email. There's also a survey in there where you can rate David's performance. And more importantly, suggest topics for future Chamber Lives as well. And we'll put David's contact. Are you happy for us to share your contact details? They're in the slides, I think, anyway, aren't they?
The slides been up with the contact details. You'll find on the PMM website, and genuinely, we're getting a lot of good comments on our coronavirus hub. We're getting a blog up pretty much every day, sometimes more than once a day, as new announcements come out. So have a look at the PMM website on that, and if you wind up thinking it's too technically written, let us know. But genuinely, it's written for people rather than for accountants. Should be fairly accessible. Beyond fairly, it's very accessible.
Very accessible. Excellent. All right. Well, thanks again, David. Thanks everyone for joining us. Don't forget the next Chamber Lives we've got next Wednesday, which is Don't Stop Selling and Marketing. Monday the 20th of April is keeping the home workforce engaged and connected. And then 2 weeks today, Wednesday the 22nd of April, managing health and safety at work during a pandemic. All available at chamberlive.co.uk. Stay safe, everybody. Thanks very much.
Thanks all. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.